Welcome to my game devlog, where I'm making a blacksmith game inside my camper van. This week we're finally getting on the road to Germany, and while driving I started to reflect on something. When I launched my first game, my climbing puzzler Crux, I intuitively got something right, because I knew exactly who this game was for, people who like mobile games and rock climbing. I started cultivating this audience long before I launched the game. I showed it to other climbers, I reached out to game journalists who were climbers and climbing influencers who were into games, and so on. So by the time I launched, there was a small but engaged community there. But when I made my next game, I thought it didn't need all that. So basically just did a bunch of TikToks and a press release and thought that would be it. Turns out that wasn't enough and the game was pretty much dead on arrival. So what's my lesson here? I think marketing is not just throwing stuff at people. So in order to get this conversation going with the new game, the plan is to create a mock trailer of the main game loop so that I can start finding people who might be into that sort of thing. The first thing I want to do is have a little brainstorm around the name. I've been playing with some ideas, but I always think it's a good idea to go broader. So I asked ChatGPT to come up with a few ideas that take things like SEO into account as well. So these are all the names it suggested. I personally have a favorite in here already, but I would be really curious to hear what you think as well. So if you have a favorite or another idea, let me know in the comments. So since the game loop consists of getting requests from your customers, making items for them, and then seeing how they do, those are the 3 steps we'll need to represent visually. When making voxel art, the first thing I always do is to block things out. That way I already have the rough shape, and then I can start filling in the objects, going from larger structures like walls and floor to smaller details later on, like weapons, etc. Now that we have the assets ready, we can start to make things functional. That means setting up the lighting and positioning the objects in a scene so that it looks kind of good. In order for the customers to come into the shop, I'm just creating a couple of waypoints here. And then I will write some scripts that allow me to trigger a character to move along those waypoints. Let's quickly add the dialogue as well. Since I'll need a bit of UI for this, I'll purchase a pixel art UI bundle from the Unity Asset Store. I found one that I really like and it's on sale right now. So it's not very expensive and it will save me a lot of time. In terms of code, I'll just make a simple conversation controller. All I need is to add dialogue lines and indicate which speaker should say them, and then it'll just make sure to trigger the right text bubble and enter that text. Now it's all working, but it still looks pretty stale. So let's add a basic walk and talk animation. The specific pixel art I'm using is pretty minimal, so we don't have that much to work with. What I'll do is I'll look up some example walk cycles, and then we can see if we can apply the principle to our little guys here. And for the talking, I'm simply going for that South Park Canadian style where the head just bobs up and down a little bit. I think that'll work well for these. Importing all that into Unity is relatively straightforward. I just need to slice it up, create the animation clips from the different images, and then I can hook it all up in the animator, which will allow me to simply call an animation by name from code. For this first step of the game, there's one key part missing now, and that is some information about your customer's adventure. So let's create some sort of preview screen where you can see the adventure they're going for and the things that you already know about it. And when making UI, I think it's always a good idea to mock it up first. It's just way quicker to iterate on your design this way than if you did that in the pretty clunky Unity interface. Next, I'll look through the UI templates I bought and take some modal or window that is kind of close to what I want in terms of layout, because then I can just add, remove, and replace things, and I don't have to do all that from scratch. I think this looks pretty good. It communicates that in this game, people will come to your shop, engage in a bit of dialogue, and then show you where they want to go. And if you pay more attention, you'll also see that as you help your customers succeed, you'll learn more about these adventures and dungeons. What I want to show in the card game demo is basically that there will be cards. You will be able to stack them on your anvil, and combining different materials will lead to the creation of higher order items like weapons and armor. However, first we need a card. Most tutorials I've checked out use 2D UI to create cards, but for now I'll just make it all in 3D. In terms of animation, I will simply play with the transform. That means I will manipulate position, rotation, and scale. Next, I'll get to implement some basic handling code. First, I'll try to spawn a draw pile and then draw 4 cards into your hand when you click on them. Unfortunately, these cards seem a bit overly excited, so I'm afraid I'll need to ask them to turn only once. Next up, I'll implement that clicking on a card will trigger the pickup animation and also tell the computer which card I have selected so that I can do other things with it. And the last thing I need to add is an effect that lets a new card appear when you stack the right cards on top of each other. I'll implement this with a reverse dissolve effect. What that basically means is that I'll hide the object behind an invisible pattern, and then I'll gradually get it out from behind that pattern, which kind of has the effect of slowly revealing parts of the objects. So all in all, I would have liked to make this part a little bit smoother. It still feels quite clunky, but it would have meant making the solution a fair bit more complex, and for now that needs to suffice. As the game is taking some shape, I'm starting to realize that there's a commonality between making indie games and converting a camper van. It's a really bad idea to do either if you don't enjoy the process of that. Because you sink so much time into completely unexpected details just because you've never encountered them before. You know, you might get a new window into your car in a couple of hours and then spend half a day just trying to put a cable down somewhere. Now all that's missing is the combat view. And the main thing here is to show that you'll get to view your customer's adventure without actually taking part in it. So I will create a UI that shows the adventure, your customer's progress in it, and what they're currently doing. In the final game, I want to give you way more options to really drill into what happens and how your weapons and your armor performed against different enemies. But for now, I think it's just about selling the idea. So first, I'll set up the graveyard, same way as I did with the shop earlier, lighting, positioning, etc. Then, because we're getting into UI again, I'll do a quick mock-up in Figma. I got a bit too fast here and kind of got stumped, so I had to revert back to the basics, write down exactly what information should be on screen, and then find a good layout for it. And before we get to all the text, let's actually start with this little indicator here that shows the path the hero has already walked. The way I want to do this is simply add a few invisible points and then write a script that takes these points and draws a line along them. So that looks pretty great, doesn't it? It's a quick fix though. We just need to reduce the width of the line here. And some of the points got confused, so we just need to get them into the correct order. And there we go. And now comes the UI. So what I usually do is just split the screen into horizontal and vertical groups, then fill in the text and the images, and for most cases that works fine. So this leaves a little bit to be desired, of course, but I think, again, it does the job. With a bit of hindsight, these last weeks have been all about things taking shape. The camper is finally fit for purpose. It's complete with a heater, solar panels, compost toilet, and the game is finally in a form that I can show and explain to people. So as we make our way down to France, I'll start experimenting with it on social media and report back in another episode on how that went. So for us, it's now time to get on the road again for some rock climbing and hopefully better weather in France.